Hello again. Been a while. All is well here. Long story as to why I haven't added anything to this channel in a while, but I've got some stuff in the queue and we'll get on with it. First order of business is something, it's not an entire project in the sense of I'll show you all the different steps. It's more a specific situational type of thing that I get asked a lot, which is how do you clamp or hold the work when it's of an irregular shape, like this is like an ice cream cone flattened on. I mean, how do you put that in a vise or something, or secure it so that you can drill a hole in it that is exactly coaxial and centered on the airway? And it is a trick, and that's what we're going to address. I've got two pipes here that both need the same thing. You can see we got a snapped off tenon here. This is an Italian pipe with the fragile plastic stem. It's thick enough, but it's delicate material, or relatively so. This is a very much a high-end pipe. It's a bang, or I think it's pronounced bong. I'm not sure. I've heard it both ways. This is the most common brand of high-grade pipe that I get sent for tenon replacement, and that's because it's proportionately so small. This is a fairly hefty pipe here, probably about 75 grams, maybe 65, I don't know. It's a chunk. And the tenon on these tends to be about just over 1/4 of an inch in diameter, like 0.26 or 0.27. And that's just plain too small. Even though it's high-grade rubber, it just won't stand up to dropping. And I probably fixed 25 or 30 of these in just the last few years. They come in like a hailstorm in my mailbox. So anyway, we'll deal with how to clamp these shapes, these unusual shapes, in preparation for drilling. And as long as we're at it, I'll talk a little bit about some of the things associated with this procedure here, since somebody's bound to ask questions if I don't just do it while it's in front of me. First order of business is to level the shattered remnants of the old tenon, and that's trickier than it sounds. You don't want to go dragging it on something flat. One slip and you put a flat spot along this edge and you are screwed. There's no recovery from that. Even if you shorten the stem by a fractional amount, then it's going to get smaller in size and not match. You get the picture. It's ugly. So that has to be done very carefully on well, I don't know that it's the only way to do it, but I do know it works because it's how I do it, is a very carefully set up disc sander where I'm able to look directly down at the work and see the gap between the face of the stem and the surface I'm grinding against in a very steady hand and lots of experience, because you're just as screwed if you zip the edge of this off. But nothing I can do more with that than tell you how I do it and assure you that that does work with sufficient practice. So I would take some junk stems and just grind the tenon off on them to get used to the angles, because you'll have to deal with something called parallax when you're looking down on something, and it's not, well, look it up. I won't run on here, but a parallax is a phenomenon when you're trying to align things, and it will bite you hard when you're trying to do this if you're not careful. And the other thing I wanted to mention, this particular pipe is homebrew attempt at a fix. This gray material here is some kind of glue, probably that Gorilla Glue you hear about. And the tenon is sitting at an angle. And I don't know yet what that means. Whether the plastic is bent, it was heated and bent somehow, or whether it deformed the mortise. Won't know until I get that out, but it's going to be a bit of a trick to get it out without risking cracking the shank, because we have grain running this direction here, which tends to make it a little more worrisome. So the usual slide hammer method, I might have to come, if that's actually glued in there at an angle, that's going to be perhaps a bit of work. But I'll get the faces of these cleaned up and flat and get these remnants of the old tenons out of the shank, and meet you back on the camera when those things are done.